welcome to another episode of the Bald Avenger Show. I am Jason Cisneros, also known as the Bald Avenger, the tattooed guru, the purveyor of all things common sense, the king of the Misfit Nation, and a legend. In my own mind, Jeff. In my own mind, okay? I saw you getting all judgy there. But we always ask everybody, if you're not a legend in your own mind, how can you possibly be a legend in anyone else's mind? Right? Because legends do legendary stuff. So tonight, I have been excited about this since Jeff and I texted each other back and forth about getting him on the show. And I don't know that I can do a great justice of doing the introduction, but I'm gonna try. And then I want you to tell your story because it's so prevalent. It's so perfectly timed for where we are, what we're going through, those types of things that I'm very, very excited for everybody to get to know you. What I will tell you is that, and maybe this is how I'll do it, Jeff, and then I'll let you just kind of tell your story. We were at an event, and I don't want to give I don't want to give away the end of the story in case you're planning on doing something for us here in this show. But one of the things, I met you at an event. We were both speaking in Las Vegas, and you spoke during the lunch break where we were all eating. And I don't say this very often. In fact, I don't think very many people have ever heard me say this on my own show. But your talk was among the top 5 most inspirational things that I've ever heard. And then, the action at the end of it, it really adjusted me, brother. And I know all the speakers, and Tony Robbins, I know all of them. And I've heard all the talks, and I've been to all the events, and I've been to all those things. So when somebody like you comes along, that's a breath of fresh air, you really have no agenda behind you. Your heart is there to serve. It's something that I immediately attached to, and you and I became friends immediately, and have kind of kept in touch back and forth. I'm watching what you're doing and the great things that you're bringing to this world during these volatile times. On my show, we don't mention the name of it because we just call it the virus that shall not be named. Right? It's that's what we talk. That's what we say about it here. But I want you to tell a little bit about your story because I can't do it anywhere near the justice. But people, again, I always tell people at the beginning of these shows, please listen to what Jeff has to say. Listen to what I have to say, but listen to your heart and listen to where it speaks to you. Listen to where you see yourself in this message, and then. Not only that, but how can you apply how Jeff has decided to do this world, how he's decided to do life, and see where you can apply that in your own life, because that's the only reason I started the Bald Avenger Show, was to serve and to be able to bring different voices and different backgrounds and different perspectives to what I saw was a huge gap out there with people trying to make money, people trying to be on the left or the right. There's absolutely no political leanings in these shows. We don't talk about it. It's not, we do talk about politics, but 99% of the time when we do, we're making fun of it, okay? Because of how nonsensical it can be. But with that, I want to turn it over to you and let you introduce yourself and kind of set the plate for why you're on my show. Set the plate for why you are where you are right now.
Oh, absolutely. And thanks for the introduction there. And I liked how you said that you are the legend. You are the legend. I always like to tell people that I am the best unknown speaker you have never heard of yet.
Yet.
And that is the key phrase right there, is yet. And I'd like to say that I kind of got into this game a little late. But what's interesting here is just kind of some context with that comment right there. I've been an educator for 16 years, the high school and college level. I've got my master's in education and curriculum. And what's interesting here is I've taken some of these gold nuggets, which I hope to share with some of them with your audience tonight. And that is, I found some of these gold nuggets, flecks of gold, really. And how often do we pass the flecks of gold searching for the gold nuggets? And if we gather enough flecks of gold and we put them in our bags, we'll eventually have a full bag of gold. And then we can just forge them and melt them into some gold nuggets, which I think that I have. And over these last 20 years, I've been able to share some of these gold nuggets that I've forged and with some of the harshest critics called teenagers.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, teenagers and young adults. And what I found, though, is CEOs and executives are even harsher critics than teenagers because they are teenagers who haven't figured it out yet and think that they're there.
Right, because they're getting paid a little bit of money.
Right, so they're getting paid a little bit of money and they're faking it. I'm telling you right now, they're like, dude, here's what I want you to do. Go do it, figure it out. But so what's interesting here, and the question that I posed to you and your group at in Vegas, I don't know if you remember this, but I always like to just address the elephant in the room because I come rolling out in a wheelchair. I come rolling out, and I love to address the elephant about how good looking I am.
Right. True. I told you that was one of the downfalls of me being on the show with you, man, is that you're better looking than me.
Yeah, no, I say that because I know that's not true, right? But I always tell my wife that my last name is Griffin, and so I'm like, hon, I'm a Griffin. I'm half eagle, half lion. I'm a mythical beast. And she's like, Jeff, you're neither mythical or a beast.
I love it.
So the 4 questions that I kind of presented to the audience, and I present with yours as well, is I do come out in a wheelchair. I come rolling out. I wasn't always in a wheelchair, and I'm going to get to that in a second. But I may be physically paralyzed, and I may have been given a life sentence from a wheelchair. But I believe most of us, if not all of us, are paralyzed from the demons of doubt, fear, and complacency. Those suckers just kill us. And if you've ever been paralyzed in the past, give me a thumbs up or whatnot. But I invited the audience to stand, and half of them, 3/4 stand. These are high quality people like yourself that are in this room. And then, of course, the other question that I asked is, have the methods you've used to motivate fallen short of expectations, if not flat on your face? And I don't know about you, but sometimes I know what to do, but I don't do what I know. And there's that gap in between. And so I'm like, I'll do it tomorrow. Right. But if we continue to put off tomorrow what we could do today, we end up with a bunch of empty yesterdays.
That's right.
And then, of course, the other 2 questions that I presented was, have you lost the fire to, have you struggled to refuel the fire of desire? And then the last one is, do you or others place limits on your dreams? And if you recall, the whole room was just standing, and my hat goes off to you because it's raw, it's real. And if we can admit to ourselves, if we can stop lying to ourselves,
right?
How often do we pretend and we make up these stories and we lie to ourselves that, this is happening over here, but it's really not. And so, it was just amazing just to see the vulnerability from some great influencers in that room. And the thing is I've experienced them as well. I've experienced those same things as well. But what's interesting here is I believe that every problem under the sun has a solution or it has none. And if there be one, hurry and find it. If there be none, never mind it. And so often, Jason, we focus so much on the problems and the challenges that we don't spend enough time on the solutions.
100%.
And the thing is we have the ability to solve the problems. We have the ability to discover the solutions within us, right? I believe that you are the solution to impossible. Your listeners are the solution to impossible. We just have to take a step back and listen. And so I believe that there's 3 Ds that are at the foundation of every solution. And those 3 Ds is desire, dream, and do. And I'd love to jump into those a little bit here and just kind of dissect what a desire is, maybe look at the anatomy of a dream, and then give some practical advice and practical steps on what to do to improve and increase in those areas. But it starts with the dream, right? When's the last time we dreamt? When's the last time we dreamt in color? When's the last time, as you mentioned before at the beginning of this show, just to sit back and to listen? to listen to that song that sings in our soul. And for me, when I was a little kid, my dream was to play football in college. And, I was just this little kid from Cache Valley, and where they breed them to hate them down south. I wanted to go to this school down south, and that I loved it. I carried a football with me everywhere I went. I played it in the springtime. I played it in the summertime. I played it in the wintertime. And on Sundays, when my mom wouldn't let me play it, I'd go to the basement and play it in my mind. I throw the ball as close to the ceiling as I possibly could and imagine making catch after catch after catch from the next All-American quarterback from BYU. Now, and I know I said it. I said to the school down there, they breed them to hate them up there in Cache Valley. I grew up there. I grew up dreaming about playing down there. And I remember telling somebody my dream. I don't know if you ever told somebody your dream before, but when I told somebody my dream, they laughed at me. They laughed at me, and they told me all the reasons why I couldn't play football, at least the reasons why they thought I couldn't play. And something I learned throughout this process and throughout these years is, typically and generally speaking, we as human beings, we base other people's possibilities on our limitations.
Amen. We
base other people's possibilities on our limitations, and we begin to tell everybody the reason why you can't. And here's the deal. In fifth grade, there was no possible way that I could play football at BYU. Not at that time. And they couldn't envision it when I got to that point as well. But whenever we want something in the future, it always seems impossible. And it is impossible because we've never been there before. I love to say that we've got to find the simplicity on the far side of complexity. We've got to find that place where things slow down. You hear quarterbacks all the time, the game slowed down for me. And you're playing a game right now where I'm sure it has just slowed down for you. You're able to look around. It's almost like that slow motion matrix for you. That's what I'm guessing, right?
It's 100% true, man. I mean, with everything that's going on, I'm getting phone calls all day long. I mean, it's from the time I wake up at 6 o'clock until the time I go to bed. I have business owners, calling me. What do I do, Jason? I've got my family. I've got my friends. They're looking for that oak tree right in the storm, and for somebody to stand and say, okay, what's an A to B like? Because there's never, to your point, right? There's never just one choice. And the thing that separates us from the rest of creation is the idea that we have this prefrontal cortex where we can hold more than one idea in our mind at the same time, compare them, and come up with a third one, right? I love what you're saying. I love it. And your desire, dream, do, right? Desire is the thing that God imprinted on your heart to say, this is what you were meant to do. And then when it clicks and it gets up here, it becomes a dream. You start thinking yourself that you can do it. You start seeing it being done. You see yourself participating in it. And the next step is for you to take that action, which we talk about all the time in the Bald Avenger show, right? Which is, there is nothing going to change with you just thinking about stuff. It's only going to change when you take the action. And that action is traditionally outside of your commonplace activities that have given you what you have in your relationship, in your body, in your bank account, in your own personal joy. So I love where you're going with this, brother. I love it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what's interesting here is I always ask the question, if you had to eliminate one of those 3Ds, which one would it be? Would you eliminate your desire? Would you eliminate your dream? Would you eliminate the do part? And it's interesting to hear some of the comments, right? Like, you know what? I think I would get rid of my desire, because if I have a dream, I'm going to go out there and get it. But where did you come up with the dream, right? And other people are like, yeah, I'd get rid of the do. I'd get rid of the do, because if I have a dream and a desire, the do will just come. And so it's kind of fun to listen to some of these people talk about that. And then I love to compare it with some major organs, major organs of our body, like the brain, the heart, and the feet. Which one would you get rid of?
Right.
Would you get rid of the brain? Would you get rid of the heart? Would you get rid of the feet? What's going on here? And so these three things are so essential. And what's interesting is a lot of us haven't spent enough time to really take a look at how or what drives our feet forward, what drives our dreams and whatnot. And so at the time when I wanted to play football, I didn't realize, I wasn't smart enough to know, all these things. I also discovered and learned too that we as human beings, we reject what we don't understand, and we base our possibilities on what we know. And there's the paradox.
We say that again because I want everybody to hear it. Somebody should put it in the comments.
Yeah, so we reject what we don't understand, and we base our possibilities on what we know.
And what we know is traditionally based on our failures that we remember.
Right, absolutely. And what we know is based on the past, and what we know is based on our programming. And so again, right, I didn't know this at the time, but I was like, you know what, you're right. The possibilities of me playing football in college are probably 0%, 1%. It's kind of like Dumb and Dumber, where they're like, do we have a chance? One in a million.
Yeah, so you're saying there's a chance.
Right? Absolutely. You're saying there's a chance. And so I didn't know that, but what's interesting here is how many times do we hear the word I can't or you can't?
Brother, I got to tell you, it's a cuss word. I have a 7-year-old daughter that when somebody says can't, she looks at him and goes, oh, because it's a cuss word in my family.
It's a 4-letter word.
It's a 4-letter word, and none of my children, I have 5 kids, and all 5 of them to this day, it's ingrained in their heads. Cisneros don't say can't.
Yeah.
I love that.
That word is poisonous. It's debilitating. It's limiting. And as soon as you tell yourself that you can't, your brain shuts down. And you're absolutely right. I think it was Yogi Berra that said it. If you think you can, or if you think you can't, you're right. Or maybe it was Henry Ford. I don't know. One of those people way back when, right? But, I believe in it. And by the time we're 17 years old, we hear the word I can't 150,000 times compared to I can. And so, I used to tell people, if don't use that word I can't, but if you do, use it with yet. But then I'm sorry, no, don't even use I can't yet. Just start saying what I want to do. I desire, right? Like I always say, I'm the greatest speaker you've never heard of.
Right.
Yet.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes. I'm like, I'm not going to use that word I can't. But they gave me all the excuses. They're like, Griff, you can't play football in college because you're too short. You can't play football in college because you're too slow. And they also said I couldn't play football in college because I was too light.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, absolutely, that's great. But I ignored them. But I didn't, if that makes sense. Totally. And what's interesting, it's so difficult to ignore the critics, especially when they're always chirping. They're always chirping. And the most difficult critics to ignore is you yourself. When you start to believe in the other critics.
Yep.
So I had that wrestle, right? But I had a stronger desire to play football in college, and I kept on chasing it down. And I listened to the song that sang to my soul and chased it down. And 1 year after practice, my senior year, I came home from practice, and there was a letter on the table from the school that I wanted to go to, just to make sure I wasn't dreaming. 3 steps, I'm there. I touched the embossed helmet that's on the envelope. I open up the envelope, tear out the letter, and there's the letter. Addressed from the legendary Hall of Fame coach, Lavelle Edwards, inviting the short, slow, white guy to come play for him. Mm-hmm. And I tasted the sweetness of success. I played 2 downs, and I got to experience what it would be like to be on the field, to not just be in the stadium, right? And not just to have a jersey on my back, but to actually be in the game. And as leaders, our responsibility is not just to get them to the stadium, but to get them down from the stands and onto the sideline, and not just on the sidelines, but to actually help them onto this field, this playing field called life.
And push them if we have to.
Absolutely. But I've learned that if you can develop a dream that is crystal clear, that dream tends to pull them.
Yep.
And draw them into that playing field. And what's interesting here is most of us don't know what we want, but the majority of us know what we don't want.
Crystal clear.
And so it's like, okay, what's going to happen here? Because you know as well as I know that we get what we focus on. I'm talking to a Formula One race car driver. He's like, I never look at the wall, especially at those speeds. Because as soon as you look at the wall,
that's where your hands go.
That's where your hands go, and that's where you go. We get what we focus on. And when I spoke in Sweden last June at the 8th World Congress on mind training, these 20 years of research were validated by a guy who had a bunch more letters in front of his name than I do.
Right.
And he was talking about how the way that he helps people identify what their dreams are is he takes a look at what they don't want. And I'm like, that's what I've been doing for 20 years. I call it dream weaving. It's 10 minutes. It will change your life. 10 minutes will change your life. And that dream weaving, what we do here is we kind of just demonstrate this concept that we focus more on what we don't want than what we do want. And then we spend some time on focusing on what we don't want. For example, I had one lady said, you know what, I don't want to feel like a monster. Those are the words she used.
Wow.
I don't want to feel like a monster. And it just hit me. And this is a beautiful woman who has a great family and some wonderful kids. And so what we did here is we just made a list of what she didn't want. And most people are like, I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be fat, right? And they take all these things out. I don't want to be lonely. You know, I don't want to be destroyed by this tsunami that's going through the world today. And what happens is as soon as we start doing that, we get what we focus on. So we take that, and what we do is we take that and we take the opposites and we put it down on a list of what they really want. So if somebody's saying, I don't want to be poor, they're really saying, I want to be wealthy. I want to be rich. I want to, have abundance. I want to be legendary. But as soon as you say, I want to be legendary, everyone comes out and says, why you're not.
Yep.
But again, we get what we focus on. And so anyway, dream weaving, it's simple, just not easy. When I went and trained with the Navy SEALs in January, not this January, but last year, January, I get a phone call saying, hey, Griff, you need to come train with the Navy SEALs. And I'm like, you do realize I'm in a wheelchair? and they're like, yeah, we do. Absolutely. I'm like, okay, in one condition. I will come in one condition if you don't change any of the events that you're planning on doing. If I can't do them, I'll figure out how to do them. And if I can't figure out how to do them, I'll just sit on the side. But I don't want you to change anything. But on one condition, I get to jump out of the helicopter into the water. And they're like, no promises, no promises. But the Navy SEALs taught me a valuable lesson, Jason, and I'm sure you've learned this as well, that they said, Griff, it's simple to be a Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
Just not easy.
Yep.
It's simple to be a Navy SEAL, just not easy. These things that we're sharing with people, they're simple, just not easy. It goes back to how many of you guys know what to do, but you're not doing what you know?
Yep. Because
the ideal and what is real is always a gap. There's always a gap there. And so if we want to be leaders, successful leaders and leaders of success, we're going to have to teach people how to develop a desperate, deliberate, and burning desire, which comes to my second D, right? You got to have a dream, and it's got to be crystal clear. And what's interesting here is I'm just going to throw this out to you if I can, and some of your listeners as well. Most people teach that the opposite of success is what? Failure, right? They teach that the opposite of success is failure. But I don't know anybody that I've met who's successful who has not failed their way to success.
Amen.
And so what happens here is we've got to teach ourselves and we've got to understand that the opposite of success isn't failure, because failure is part of the process.
As much as air is to breathing.
Absolutely. We've got to give ourselves permission to fail, because failures at first are triumphs that last as long as we just don't quit. And so I think the opposite of success is to quit or to not even try.
Yep.
And so, but the problem here is we have conflicting desires, right? We have conflicting desires. And, I have a friend who wants to lose weight. He has a desire to lose weight. He's like, Griff, I think I could lose some weight with you if I hung out with you long enough. I'm like, let's do it. And he's like, no, seriously, I think I could lose some weight. I'm like, let's go. Let's lose some weight. He's like, nah, I really want to lose some weight. And in between these sentences and this conversation, he'd take his big gulp. He's like, I really want to lose some weight. Can you help me lose some weight? And then he'd take a bite from his Twinkie. Yeah, absolutely. Help me lose some weight. So I always ask the audience, I'm like, does he really have a desire to lose some weight? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people will shake their head and say, no, he doesn't have a desire. But I really believe he has a desire to lose some weight. But what does he have a greater desire to do?
Drink a big gulp and eat his Big Mac.
eat a Big Mac, eat his Twinkie, drink his Big Gulp. And so we have these conflicting desires, right?
Yep.
And so what we have to do here is we've got to be crystal clear on our dream. Not only do we have to be crystal clear on our dream, but we also have to develop that desire that matches the dream.
Yep.
That matches the dream. And I learned a valuable lesson. In fact, I want to share with your audience give them the P squared mindset is what I call it. It's the possibility principle. It's the P squared mindset. And we'll give you if you'll text possible to my cell phone here, I'll give here in a second. We'll send that PDF to you. But what's interesting is this P squared mindset helps develop that desire. And what that does is that P squared mindset helps you match your desire up with your dreams. And when that happens, the floodgates of imagination just open up. And the unimaginable possibilities to create just start flowing in. And it's just an amazing thing to see happen. But to finish my story here, I tasted the sweetness of success. 2 downs, and I don't care what they tell you, they don't pay enough money to play football.
Yeah.
And so I came home to Cache Valley, and I'm like, okay, what can I do to earn some money? My dad was a painter, during the summertime because he was a math teacher. And so I'm like, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to start my own business as a painter. Not pictures, but buildings. Business was booming. Things were going great. I wanted enough money to go back to play football. I also wanted a bullet bike for jealous reasons.
Yeah, for girls. Yeah.
Every time I see a guy on a bullet bike, there's a girl on back. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I think the chicks dig the wheels.
Yep. And it's always a pretty one. It's always a pretty one.
Yeah, absolutely. And it wasn't until I got in a wheelchair, Jason, that I realized that the chicks dig the wheels.
They do dig the wheels. That's for sure.
They do dig the wheels.
You were surrounded by beautiful women, and you're married to a beautiful woman, so you're good. That proves your point.
Absolutely, man. I'm telling you, I love it. When I went to the dance, that's a story for a different time. But so I get a call from Napoleon Dynamite Country in Preston, Idaho. Go up there, bid on the barn. 3 days later, and $3,000 richer, I'd have enough money to go back to school, get my bullet bike, and continue orchestrating and conducting my dream of playing football. So I get up there to the job site. I want to get the tall parts done first. I pull some scaffolding out, pull a ladder on top of that. Not high enough, so now I have 2 levels of scaffolding. Lean the ladder up against the barn, start climbing up there. My buddy's holding the ladder. He's shaking, and it's rattling. I'm thinking to myself, maybe you shouldn't be up here. But I'm like, what could go wrong? And halfway up the ladder, I yell down to my buddy. I'm like, hey, Doug, we can relate this to life, to business, to progress. Step by step, precept to point. He's like, shut up, Griff, stop preaching to me. And I'm like, sorry, Doug. And I get up to the top, and I pulled that. I couldn't quite reach the top, but I pulled that sprayer, and the paint just dribbled out. I'm like, the pressure wasn't on. So I get back down on the ground, adjust the sprayer, make sure that it works, get back up on the scaffolding, lift the ladder 1 notch higher. I lean the ladder up against the barn. I start climbing up there 1 more time. My buddy yells up to me. He's like, hey, Griff, I know how excited you are to go bungee jumping tonight, but I want to remind you that you don't have a cord. To get back at him, I'm like, shut up, Doug. Stop preaching to me. You know how guys do that, right?
Oh, yeah, I know.
Absolutely. And so I get to the top, and this time I can reach. And this time I'm not coming back down until I finished the top. And so I lift my arm above my head, and I pull down on that lever. I'm about to pull down on that lever when that infamous feeling that we've all felt in grade school when we're leaning back on our chair.
Yep.
And the teacher tells us not to, and we're thinking, what could go wrong? And when we go back, our stomach up to our mouth and down at our feet and settles our stomach again. I felt that feeling, and I dropped the sprayer, and I'm like, oh, shoot. I think I said shoot.
Well, this is a show that you can say whatever word you actually said, because everybody's used to cussing on this show.
There you go. I don't do much cussing, but let's just say I said shoot at that moment. I dropped the sprayer, and as the scaffolding ladder slipped out from underneath me and started to crumble into this big pile of scrap metal down below, I just instinctively jammed my thumb into that gap up above the barn where there's some loft doors, and I jammed my thumb in there, just pulled my thumb out, filleted the top part of my thumb off. I'm falling quickly. I'm hearing the mess getting bigger and bigger. I don't want to be a part of that down below. And so there's a 1-inch ledge, and that's my only safety latch left. And I reach out to grab onto it because I don't want to be a part of that pile of scrap metal down below, and I grab on its perfect contact, and I dig my fingernails in. And I don't know if you or your listeners have ever felt that way before, where you just, what you've built and what you've established has just taken, has just slipped out from underneath you, and you're free falling. And right now, there's a ton of people who what they've built up, what they've established has just have been taken out from underneath them. And here's the beauty of it, and also the scary part of it. When the moment to perform has arrived, the moment for preparation has passed. And
Say it again.
When the moment to perform has arrived, the moment for preparation has passed. And we were talking about this.
Somebody put that in the comments.
And so you talked about, I think you talked about how these businesses are calling you up and are looking for these oak trees. And it's the Chinese parable that says the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago.
Yep.
And so
the best day is today.
There you go. Absolutely. And so if you haven't been preparing for your performance, let's course correct. Let's change some things, because we can prepare for the next 10 years, the next 20 years, the next 100 years. But the thing is as Sir Winston Churchill says, that to every man, there's been given that moment where they're figuratively tapped on the shoulder to perform something unique to them. And how many times have we let that figurative tapping pass us by?
Yep.
And so that ladder just slipped out from underneath me. Who prepares and plans to fall from some scaffolding, right? And who prepares to fall, with these other things that are happening out there? In fact, I just lost $30,000 right before they shut everything down. And as a speaker, they start shutting down these events, right? Who plans for those? But here's the beauty. If you've been preparing for the future, you also know how to prepare for the present. You also know how to make those small adjustments. You don't have to make these huge adjustments. You know how to make these small adjustments that make all the differences.
Yep.
It's those hinges. But at the time, I'm not thinking of that. I didn't know that. The scaffolding slipped out from underneath me. I'm grabbing on. I'm holding on to dear life. And I don't know if any of you guys have felt that way. I'm just like, okay, if I hold on long enough, my buddy can get the scaffolding, put it back up, lift the ladder up against the barn, and I can get back down safe. But as soon as I even thought that, because of the weight of my body and the pull of gravity, it caused my fingers to pop off. The ledge, not my hands. I don't know if some of you are like, holy crap, they look so real. No, these are my original fingers. They did not pop off my hands. They popped off the ledge, and I'm going down. And in last-ditch desperation, I just start scrambling. And you know as well as I do that scrambling doesn't work. And I don't remember doing that as much as knowing that I realized that I had paint chips and wood splinters jammed underneath my fingernails. And so I'm problem solving. That wasn't working. So another thought came to my mind: stop, drop, and roll. Now I know it's a fire drill, and I didn't land on my head, but I'm going to stop. I'm going to drop. I'm going to roll. I'm going to break my fall. If I break a leg or two, it's better than
any alternative.
Any alternative, absolutely. Hindsight's 2020. It's better than breaking your back. And as soon as I looked down to the ground, bam! I stuck the landing. Perfect. My legs came up, my back came down, and my L1 vertebrae exploded inside me. And I crumbled to the ground. And as I crumbled to the ground, I felt like an underground cavernous explosion had just taken off, or it coursed down my legs, down my arms, down my fingertips and toes. And the pain was so excruciating that I reached out to alleviate the pain. And I grabbed my legs with my hands, and my hands could feel my legs, but my legs could not feel my hands. And my buddy had just recovered from his small little fall, and he comes over to me, he starts shaking me. He's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I don't think you should be doing
that." Not in the 911 manual.
No, it's not. And I look up to him, and I remember telling him, I'm like, "Doug, I think I'm paralyzed. Go call the ambulance." He's like, "No, you can't be." I'm like, "No, I think I'm paralyzed. Go call the ambulance." And so he left me there. I'd fallen 40 feet. Didn't know exactly what I had done to my back. My dreams of playing football. done. My dreams of riding a motorcycle with a girl on back, over. And so here I am. I've just fallen 40 feet. And I learned for myself that cutting corners leads nowhere but down. And how many people are looking for those corners to cut? We can find shortcuts, I believe. But if we're trying to cut corners, it's going to lead nowhere but down. And if we're not creating that solid foundation to begin with, we're going to fall. We're going to fall in moments like this. And so that's why I love what you're doing for people. That's why I love what I'm doing for people, getting there and helping them understand that, listen, you've got to prepare now. You got to prepare 10 years ago to perform right now. So often people don't want to hear how long it takes to find the simplicity on the far side of complexity. The Olympics were going to come this summer, but they've postponed them to 2021. I got to play in the Athens 2004 Paralympic Games as a wheelchair basketball player. And I've been around some elite athletes. I like to consider myself as one of those elite athletes. And what's interesting is we turn on the TV and we watch them perform and they do their thing and it makes it look so easy.
Effortless, yep.
Effortless. And you're like, I can do that. Mm-hmm. And we go out and do it. And then the ER is full of those type of people, right? Where you go out there, you try to do it. But what's interesting here is there's these athletes that are preparing for a 2-second performance. And they've done that for 16 years.
Yep.
Are you willing to put in the work for 2 seconds?
That's it.
That's it, right? And so I didn't know exactly what I had done with my back. Didn't know exactly what happened. All I did know this, though, is my dreams of playing football done. And if you don't mind, do you mind if I just share with your audience my experience when they finally took a picture of my back and gave me the results?
Yeah, please.
So Jason, I wrote this book called I'm Possible, Desire, Dream, Do.
I have a copy of it.
And yours might be the collector's edition. It's the light blue one, if that's the one. But this book, I love it just for the fact that I got a D- in 6th grade in English. And in high school, my English teacher told me, she's like, Griff, you'll never write a comprehensive sentence.
Right.
And when I got to my freshman year in college, all that was validated in my freshman English class, that first day where you write a paragraph. They called 6 of us to the back. I was one of the 6 out of 300. I go bounding back there. I'm like, hey, what'd I win? And they're like, you want a date with a remedial English teacher. What's that mean? Like, that's why you need this. And so after my accident, I had a chance to sift through my shattered back and broken dreams. And as I mentioned before, I discovered some flecks of gold that helped me get to that point of playing football. And so I wrote those flecks of gold down. It took me 3 months to write it. It took me 10 years to get the confidence to reprogram and to put it out there. For people to judge, people to criticize, to people to say, you're right, you're not a writer. And but that's okay. We're in our 3rd print right now, and we're looking at expanding and just making it bigger. Dean Graziosi said that 90% of authors never sell more than 1,000 books.
Yep. And
so I'm an author now.
You're an author, baby.
I'm an author, man. And so if you don't mind, I'm going to read the diagnosis. I want you to imagine this, because I want you guys to think about this. How do you deal with major challenges and difficult setbacks? What's your MO? What's your programming? What do you typically do? Because when the pressure increases, what comes out is our natural tendencies. Or as I like to say, our programmed natural tendencies.
Right.
Because in reality, all our programming our programming has been given to us from the age that we were born, even when we were conceived. And so when the pressure increases, what comes out of us is our natural tendencies. And so what's your natural tendency when the pressure increases? Do you curl up in a ball? Do you get in a fetal position? Do you suck your thumb? Do you shake your fist at God or at other people? Do you complain and just
what's your home? Where's your home? Where do you go home to?
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely. Where do you go home to? Your natural tendencies. And so how do you deal with major challenges and a difficult setback? I just want you to think about that as I read this. The doctor came in with the results. The look on his face said it all. Jeff, he began, your L1 vertebrae has been shattered. He continued as a professional should. It exploded from the force of the fall, damaging your spinal cord. Without letting any of us respond, he finished with the diagnosis. Your T12 vertebrae is compressed as well. The silence in the room was palpable. The hum of the air vent was drowning out the noise in my head. You could almost hear everybody's heart beating out of their chest. Each word from the doctor was like a blow from a heavyweight boxer. The knockout punch came next. You're paralyzed from the waist down. The room began to circle and I almost didn't hear what came next. You'll neither walk nor move your legs again. We've scheduled a time for your surgery to repair your spine the best we can. The lights were going out and the doctor was almost finished. Do you have any questions you would like me to answer? We sat there in silence, not knowing what else to say or do. If you need anything, the doctor continued sympathetically, let me know. I'll do the best I can to help you. We said nothing. It felt like the wind had been knocked out of us. The silence was deafening as he looked at us with our mouths half open. With nothing more to say, the doctor turned and left as fast as he entered. The news was direct and clear. Your back is broken. You are paralyzed from the waist down. You will never use or move your legs again. Those statements were crystal clear and to the point. I couldn't misinterpret those comments. It was obvious at that moment my dream of playing football at BYU was over. Just like that. Dreams shattered. Just like that. My trajectory was taken away. So just like that, for some of us, it's been taken away. Our foundation has been moved out from underneath us. So how are we going to respond? How are we going to respond this time? What would you say? Taking it home?
Yep. What is your natural home? Where do you go? Right?
Yeah.
And you can reset that because people move, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, that's what this entire, like, people are more used to, people that are watching me are more used to speaking a lot more during a show. And I don't want to speak that much during the show because this is what you see in Jeff is what you should see in yourself in the mirror. You should see that this time in my heart, there's A and a B scenario, right? In my heart, this time it's going to be like Jeff caught that ledge and was able to stay there until somebody came and got him, right? What's going on right now, I think, is you're going to be able to catch that ledge and you're going to be able to stop yourself from falling all the way to the bottom. And it's a wake-up call. It is a giant shaking wake-up call. When this thing lights back up, the economy comes back, your job comes back, your paycheck comes back, all of the things that you're doing. I'm telling people, Jeff, to stick on that ledge and remember the fear of falling. I mean, that was what, 20 feet to that ledge? 30 feet to that ledge?
10 feet to the ledge.
10 feet to the ledge. So that 10 feet, if he would have been able to catch himself and had enough time to get that ladder back up there, from his friend, then we wouldn't be having this conversation, which thank God we are. And I know that Jeff will tell you, thank God we are, right? Yeah. Because he was meant for this moment. He was meant for this time. He knows he was, and he's prepared himself from that, for even before then. And then the fall, and then he's been preparing himself because, who does that? How many times do you see people that have something happen to themselves? They get their knee blown out in football and they can't play, right? And then their entire life tanks. They drink. They throw everything else, all of their potential away. What would have happened if The Rock would have done that, right? Same scenario, different, but same scenario, right? The dreams were taken away. The knee was blown out. You can't play the game. What are you going to do, right? And Misfit Nation is my family, right? My family that we talk about this every single night. The series that you're a part of right now, which I think will go down in history as being one of the most positive impacts during this period of time, is the CTFD series, right? Calm the freak down. I'll honor your no cussing deal, but we say otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I respect you, brother. So at the end of the day, we're in that moment, but we're going to be able to catch our ledge on this one. We're going to be able to catch our ledge. And the thing that I want nobody to ever forget is that 10-foot fall, because it's going to happen again. and the ledge won't be there the next time, right? The ledge won't be there that if this thing, was what they were pretending it to be, it's not going to be that, and we're going to be able to snap back. But if you go back into complacency and sheeple mode, you will eventually fall, right? And the thing about Jeff that I love, that I wanted you to have on the show tonight, is because you went through because you do a good job, right? You do a good job of covering up. Like if anybody can imagine falling and knowing that their back was broken and that they couldn't feel their leg, the amount of sheer terror that would shoot through your body into your mind, having a doctor stare you in the face and tell you that, right? You're doing a good job of covering up the idea that you were terrified.
Yeah.
Right. And that you knew that your life as it was lived one day was now forever going to be modified, whatever that looked like.
Right.
And whatever your gap was from, hey, normalcy bias is what they call it in psychology. This isn't happening. This isn't happening. This isn't happening. And people stay in that state so often that they die because they're sitting in an accident, or they're sitting in a crashed plane, or they're sitting in a crashed bus, or they're sitting in that moment when they could save themselves if they go, okay, this is happening, now what? Right? Just that transitional period, and that gap between this isn't happening, this isn't happening, this isn't happening, to, okay, it's happening, now what? And you're such a great example for people, for everybody out there that may be going through this, and they had their legs swept out from under them. They've had the scaffolding's fallen, the ladder that they were climbing has fallen down, and they caught that ledge, right? Now that ledge may fall out, an A and a B scenario, right? B scenario is that this goes into social unrest and it continues to tank, and we're in a depression. Right? Yeah. And you've done as much as you can possibly do up to this point, right? The statement that you made before, and I know that Christopher caught it for us. When the moment to perform has arrived, the time of preparation is past, right? You prepared yourself. The thing that you can do now is to put distance between you and whatever is going to happen next. But I believe that I've been preparing for this for 10 years. People have called me crazy. Jason, why do you have so many guns, right? Jason, why do you have so much food? This is ridiculous. Why'd you buy a piece of property that has an unending supply of water on it? Why? Right? My own mom, right? Who has recently come around to my intelligence level.
Thank you. Absolutely. Thank you so much.
On my property now, right?
Yeah.
Just to be safe. And so, but at the end of the day, there's not a lot of people that are in that place. And I believe that where we are, and the power of your story today is that you reached out, at least you reached out for that ledge. People need to be reaching out for that ledge, and you can't do that by complaining. You can't be doing that by every single day posting negative information. You can't do that by posting the death rate of around the world. You can't do that if you're engaged in the negative activities. Right, Jeff, I want you to talk about, because this is the most important piece of your story. You fell, you broke your back, you became paralyzed, and you ended up in a wheelchair, and then you ended up being in the Olympics, right? Yeah. You ended up being in the Olympics. You've got a couple of world records, right? You've written a book. You're one of the people that Forbes goes to say, hey, if it's about mindset, we're going to talk to Jeff Griffin. You have gone from that person who, I know you were terrified. I know you were, right? I know so many people that have been there. There was a terrifying moment. There was a terrifying period of time when you go, how do I live my life? If I can't walk, what do I do? Yeah. Right? If I don't have the use of my legs, what do I do? And we're all out here going, I don't know if I have enough toilet paper.
Right.
Let's weigh which one may be more terrifying, So I want you to, I don't mean to interrupt you, but
no, I'm glad you did.
Listening and absorbing, just like I did that day. I was totally silent and listened to you speak and do your talk. And I want you to take us to what's the difference? What can people do? I mean, I know you've given us some really great pointers up to now, but at the end of the day, where should, if they're terrified right now, and I want you to take us back to that when you were terrified and the transition between being terrified and accepting that your life going forward was no longer going to be the same. What do we do, right? Tell our audience what to do. What was the switch? What are the transitions? What are some of the things that they can do?
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. And I appreciate that. And the thing is there's some people who probably have put harnesses on, right? Put harnesses on and prepared much better than I did back then. And looking back, I'm like, man, if I would have just rented a lift for one day, hindsight's 2020. And as I'm riding down to the hospital and lying on my back, I'm thinking of all these things that I could have done different. Now the problem is I didn't do those things. So now I can complain, I can fuss about the past, fret about the future, or I can focus on the now. And so once I got the news, and I entered the sauna of self-pity, that syrupy, sticky sauna of self-pity that we go to. I entered it, but there was a question that was asked to me that changed my life, and it came from a prisoner from the point of the mountain. So what's interesting and what's ironic is this prisoner set me free from my prison, from my mental prison. Here I am having a pity party of myself saying, oh, why me? Why now? What happened? And I remember it was in the cafeteria. I grabbed my food and I was going and putting it in the table as far away as possible. And I wanted to be by myself. I'm flavoring my food. This guy plops his tray in front of me. And I look up at him. I'm about to tell him to go somewhere. I look up and he looks at me and he asks the question that changed my life. And the question he asked me is, why are you crying, dude? I'm like, what? He's like, why are you crying, dude? And in his slurred speech, he was a prisoner who was lifting weights, had an aneurysm, paralyzed from the right side of his body, couldn't speak. And in his slurred speech, he asked the question that changed my life and was, why are you crying, dude? And all of a sudden, that just snapped me out of it. And I looked around like, why am I crying? There's some people who are paralyzed from the neck down. There's one guy who had a halo screwed to his skull. He couldn't even move. There's one guy who couldn't even eat with his hand, and they taped a fork to him. And I'm looking around, I'm like, why am I crying? Why am I looking at things that I can't control? And why don't I start focusing on what I can control? And from that day forward, I've changed my outlook. I've changed my perspective. In fact, I've changed my future with that one simple question. And
it's interesting about Point of the Mountain because people don't know that's a place in Utah.
Yes.
Right? There's a prison kind of out there at the tip, right? Mm-hmm. And then if you go up the Point of the Mountain, it's some of the greatest hang gliding in the world.
Yeah.
In the world. And so I go for my very first day of hang gliding, and I'm thinking I'm going to be a parasailer, right? I'm thinking I'm going to be a parasailer.
Absolutely.
I'm sitting in my Jeep, man, and I'm drinking a cup of coffee, waiting for my instructor to show up. And I'm watching and I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Look at the paragliders, man. Look, what is that hang gliding crap all about? Like, forget that. I'm going to do the paragliding. And no sooner did I have that thought than this guy's chute collapsed and he dropped 120 feet onto the ground.
Wow.
Right? 120 feet on the ground. And he survived, but also was paralyzed. And most people would say, okay, forget that. That's not what I want to do. I did say, hang gliding looks a lot better to me right now, right? Because it takes 900 pounds of pressure. That little triangle that it takes, if you crash, it takes about 900 pounds of pressure off of the rest of your body. So I became a hang glider that day. Yeah. On the Point of the Mountain.
Absolutely. Right there. And you kept yourself, great decision, great preparation right there.
Right.
But that prisoner, Jason, asked the question that changed my life forever. And I have not gone back to that sauna of self-pity ever again. In fact, I've made it a point to focus on what I can do instead of what I can't do in every aspect of my life. The mental aspect, the physical aspect, the social aspect, the spiritual aspect, all those aspects. I'm like, you know what? If I can get myself in alignment and focus on what I can do, I can go further, farther, and faster. with less effort.
Yep.
And at that moment, I made a decision to myself. I had an opinion a declaration. I made a declaration that I was going to walk again. That was my new dream. That I was going to walk again. And my dream was to walk out of the hospital. I was supposed to be there 3 months. I told the doctor my dream, and guess what he said?
Can't.
He laughed at me. He gave me all the reasons why he couldn't. And he says, Griff, you can't walk again. You got an incision from your belly button to your back. You got a 4-inch plate in your back. We've detached your diaphragm, deflated your lung. We've cleaned up the shrapnel. Your spinal cord is done. And he says, it's impossible. It's impossible for you to walk again. And I love the quote from Muhammad Ali, who says, impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they've been given than to explore the power they have to change it. He goes on to say that impossible is not a fact, it's an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration, it's a dare. Impossible is potential, impossible is temporary, impossible is nothing. And I made a declaration that I was going to walk again and not faint, I'm going to run and not be weary, I'm going to have a full recovery. And when I told the therapist my dream, she said, let's go. So we went to the parallel bars, she said, climb up. And so I'm like trying to do that. And with her aid and my strength, it took us 5 minutes just to get into a standing position. And here's what's interesting. There's been a lot of us been lying to ourselves, saying that here we're at point B, when in reality we're at point -7 or whatever it might be. And we're just lying to ourselves and pretending that, hey, I'm doing the things that I need to do. But the thing is how many times have we done A, B, and C and been promised X, Y, and Z? And so we do A, B, and C, and we end up with PDQ. And for my Canadian people who are listening, how many have been promised X, Y, and Z, right? X, Y, and Z. And you do A, B, and C, and you end up with PDQ. And then we throw it up in the air saying, that's a bunch of crap, right? What they have to offer me is a bunch of crap. And so we've got to do our part. And first of all, we got to believe that it's possible, right? I believe that success is a 3-part series. You got to know what you want. Dream even helps you do that. You got to finish what you start. How many people start something and how many complete it? Very few. And then you got to celebrate the process. You got to celebrate the process. And so I'm doing this. And the therapist's like, walk, Griff. And I'm like, I think I can. I know I can, and nothing. And then she grabbed my leg, she lifted it up, she pulled it forward, she placed it down. She grabbed my leg, she lifted it up, she pulled it forward, she placed it down. She did that the whole way to the end of the parallel bars. And I'm sweating, and she's sweating. Sorry, she's glistening.
Glistening. Women glisten.
She's glistening. And I collapse in my chair. I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Maybe I don't want to walk. Maybe this is too difficult. To make a long story short here, and to really get to the crux of this all, right? And how can we pivot? How can we adjust our mindset? How can we create that resilient mindset? How can we create that P squared mindset, as I talk about? But I didn't walk out of the hospital. It took me, that was my dream, was to walk out of the hospital. It took me 15 minutes to get from my chair into the car. But as you witnessed in Vegas at the Caesars Palace, the doctor told me I'd never walk, stand, and move my legs again. They gave me a 0% chance. Doctors gave me a 0% chance of having kids. They're like, it's the first function to go, last function to come back. Some people gave me a 0% chance of getting married, not because of my wheelchair, but just because of who I am.
Pretty safe bet. I would have taken that one.
There you go, right? So 20 years later, I'm surprised that she said yes. I'm even more surprised that she stayed with me, but we have 4 wonderful kids. And what's beautiful here is, I'm gonna see if I can do this. I'm gonna get out of your screen here for a second, but I can let go here, and I can walk. I can walk with swagger, as I like to say it.
That's right.
But the thing is 20 years ago, there was nothing. The evidence was stacked up against me. The evidence was completely true. The expert said, you'll never walk, you'll never stand, you'll never do it. But I had a different song that sang to my soul. I saw something that other people didn't see. And I understood that if I focus on what I can do instead of what I can't do, I'll eventually get there. I couldn't walk, I couldn't move, I couldn't feel. But what I could do is I'd go out to the front of the hospital. I would sit in my wheelchair. I would try to diagnose people as they're coming into the hospital. I'm like, physical, social, mental, all at the same time while I'm out there trying to do exercises where I'm extending my legs and doing squats in my mind, and I envision myself walking again. And as I'm sweating it outside this hospital, trying to judge and diagnose other people's problems, people are double taking, looking at me and like, mental, like the guy escaped from the mental ward. And I have, because I told people all the time, I'm going to walk. I don't consider this walking. In fact, right outside my window is Mount Ben Lomond. It's 9,711 feet. I moved here 2 years ago. I'm like, that would be so cool to climb that. So I set out to do it, and I just accomplished it in August. We went all the way to the top. I walked the whole way to the top. I'm not quite there yet to where I'm running. I'm running 5 miles on the elliptical bike, but I've gone so much further than what they told me I could. And I'm convinced, Jason, that I'm going to run and not be weary. I'm going to walk, and I'm going to faint. And one of these days, I'm going to box out my son on the basketball court. I'm going to walk my daughters to the altar. I'm going to give them piggyback rides where I've never been able to yet. And I know this because I've learned some valuable lessons that if you follow with exactness, you're going to accomplish what you go out for. And here's the deal. It doesn't matter what's thrown at you. It doesn't matter what's happening here. If you prepare properly, you're going to be able to weather these storms. You're going to be able to weather what's coming. And the unfortunate truth is there's going to be a lot of people who aren't going to be able to handle this. And we're going to need people to pick them back up. We all need a hand up, not a hand out. We all need a hand up. And so what's beautiful is people like yourself and the Misfit Nation and those people are out there who can help, who can give a hand out, can extend it and help other people along the way. And I just love the fact that what you're doing right now, just, you put a call out to help a place in Utah for formula and other things. And in a time where people are like, I'm hoarding, you're like, no, let's give. I think it's just beautiful.
It's a great time, man, to be a leader, right? It's a great time for people that said they wanted to be a leader. It's a great time for them to step up and be acting like one. And your message, bro, we're going to wrap this up, here in the next couple of minutes, but I just am so grateful to you and to your message and to who you are and all of the struggle that you've put in for you to show up today on this screen for us. I know you're on stages. I know you're going to never be able to say very soon that you're the greatest speaker that nobody knows.
Never heard of?
Yeah, that nobody knows, because it's not true anymore. I knew you. I mean, there's lots of people. When you hear you, it's impossible not to fall in love with you. It's impossible to, unless people love their excuses more than their destiny, they're going to love you, right? And I say that all the time. People either love me or hate me, because there's no hidden agendas with me. You know what I mean? And some people like being told platitudes from speakers. It's going to be okay. Like, and you're going to be all right. And here's an easy pill, and here's this sugar pill, and here's that. Look, it's been 20 years since your accident, right?
Yeah, 20 plus.
So 20 plus years. And here you are, you're standing, you're not running yet, but you haven't quit, and you've done things. You've climbed a mountain. You've played in the Olympics. You've broken world records. You're in in Forbes. You're training other people that have complete use of their entire facilities how to have a better mindset, right? You're being invited by the elite of the elite on the SEAL trip. Like, this is the type of man who you should aspire to model. Period. End of sentence. Right? You've got a lot of people that are out there that, and I've been saying this a lot, Jeff, especially in the last 9 to 10 days, is that the influencers that were out there have disappeared.
Yeah. And
what has emerged are the leaders that people have needed their entire life. And they're going to say things that challenge you. They're going to tell you things that you don't want to hear. They're going to make you feel like you should be doing more with your life, which is not a bad thing. Yeah. We've trained ourselves not to feel bad about the fact that we've got a destiny or talent or power or a gift to give the world. We've been trained that it's okay to keep that back and under wraps, because if you take this 7 steps to success, if you take this magic pill, if you take that fat burner, if you take this pill that will help you with your anxiety. Anxiety exists because you are not doing the things that God gave you the talent, the ability, and the resources to be able to achieve. That's why anxiety exists, right? That's the thing that it wells up inside of you. It's that potential that is telling you. Anxiety is a kick in the ass to tell you that you need to do something different. The third piece of what Jeff is teaching us tonight is the do part of it. Right? You've got the desire, you've got the dream, and you can tamp down the desire, and you can tamp down the dream, and you can tamp down the do, and it's going to show up as other problems in your body, in your relationships. You're going to gain weight. You're going to have anxiety. You're going to have some problems with your finances. You're not going to be happy. You're going to be depressed. You're going to be able to go to a doctor that looks and says, you are broken, and here's a little pill who's going to fix you. And you know damn good and well, I was that person. That's why I can speak in such authority, is because I've been that person. And I can tell you that no matter what happens, not taking the pill and answering the call to your spirit, to your soul, to be the best you can possibly be for the purpose of serving other people. No other reason. Jeff does not exist. I can say this for him. Whether he can tell me if I'm lying or not, but Jeff does not exist for his own self-aggrandizement. He has gotten to be the best him that he can be, to lead other people, to teach his kids lessons, right? To love the woman that he's married to be an upstanding person in his community, his church, and to be someone that has become and developed all of his talents and all of his, no matter what you think. I know people that can run a 4 or a 5 or a 6 minute 40-yard dash that are not a quarter of the man that Jeff Griffin is. And I just want to say that because he's optimizing his talent, he's not just for somebody that's in a wheelchair, he's walking his talk more than 95% of the people that are out there calling themselves influencers these days. So I wanted to tell you, thank you, brother, for coming on the show. I want to tell you, thank you for making an impact in my life, and making, again, I'm not somebody that thinks in Cant, and I'm not somebody that thinks in impossibility. I'm not somebody that thinks that way, right? But for those of us that are living in can and possible and anything can be done and all those things, you are yet another example that says, hey, maybe I should be playing the game at a higher level. Maybe I should be pushing myself past some of these limits, right? And I honor you for that, and I love you for that as a brother. And I'm so grateful for you. What can you tell people? How do they get a hold of you? How do they get your book? Where can they connect with you to learn some of these lessons?
Absolutely. First, I want to give a shout out to C.D. Kaysen.
That's Christopher Kaysen. That's my boy. That's my little brother, basically.
Christopher Kaysen. I love what he said. If you give them too many sugar-coated words, they will eventually develop mental diabetes. Yeah. Absolutely. In fact, Vince Lombardi said that man cannot dream himself into character. He must hammer and forge one for himself.
Amen.
And that is one of the most important things we need to understand is we need to get up and start going. We need to get up and take a step, even if it's a small step. Inch by inch is a cinch. And so many people are like, you know what? I'm not going to do anything until I know that it's possible. I'm not going to do anything until I can see that I can do it. You're never going to get there. You're never going to see your power and potential unless you take those steps into the darkness long before you ever see the end.
Amen.
And I may be physically paralyzed, but here's the thing that I've learned, that there's more people who are mentally paralyzed. And I'm like, that is more sad than me being physically paralyzed.
100%.
And I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing with Misfit Nation. The way people can get a hold of me is if they go to griffinmotivation.com. That's Griffin, like the mythical beast, half lion, half eagle. I like to think that I am mythical, and I'm telling you, we're forging ordinary men and women into, world record leaders. who produce world record results. That PDF that I promised you guys, if you text the word possible to 801-316-8689, I will send you that free PDF, which is the P Squared Mindset. These books that I have. This first one, I'm Possible, helps you know what you want. It tells you a little bit about the dream weaving in there. This new one that I just barely wrote, it's called Endless Possibilities, the 90-day recipe for world record results. It's 21 days, as you know, to start a habit, 66 to make it automatic, and why not just go 90 and then just duplicate it over and over and over and over again. But Jason, I so appreciate this opportunity to share a few things with your group, and I love coming on here. You know, you've shared a lot of great things about me, but honestly, I've learned that the greatest men and women of history are men of service. And you are great in my eyes, and I appreciate you. If I look good, it's because I'm sitting on the shoulders of giants like yourself. And
you and I both, man. You and I both.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for being with us, brother. And we're going to share this out tomorrow on Facebook. And in about a week, we're going to be sharing this out to iTunes, iHeartRadio. I have no doubt in my mind it's going to be one of the most watched, one of the most valued, one of the most shared shows that we've done. And I did the least amount of talking, so I don't know what that tells me.
People like saying, "Hey, get rid of that guy, man. We want more dialogue here." But I did forget to mention this. If you put the coupon code LOVE, I'm going to share a little love out to your nation. If you put in the coupon code LOVE in any of my products, it'll knock off 50%.
That's awesome, brother. That's awesome. We're going to promote that. Make sure you text me. So when we repost this again tomorrow, that we've got your website, we've got all that stuff. Make sure we have that, because we certainly want your message to be out. It's relevant, it's prevalent, it's powerful. And again, thank you, and let your wife know. Thank you for sharing you with us for a little bit tonight. And I can't wait to give you a hug, brother.
Absolutely, man. You take care and keep doing good.
Oh, always.
Yes.
See ya. Bye, everyone.